Good evening. I'm John Yang. Tonight, the Middle East stands at a pivot point. The administration says Operation Midnight Hammer severely damaged or destroyed Iran's largest nuclear sites. In response, Iran says the time for diplomacy is over and hints at military retaliation against the United States, even as more missiles from Iran strike Tel Aviv. Our coverage tonight begins with Foreign Affairs and Defense correspondent Nick Schifrin.
The U.S.'s unprecedented direct attack on Iran began under the cover of darkness. A dozen B-2 bombers flew 30 hours with multiple mid-air refueling, all under strict operational security, including a decoy. The bombers launched from Whiteman Air Force Base Friday night at midnight, flying east. At the same time, B-2s also launched west, tracked on social media. But that was deliberate deception to allow the main bombers to fly to Iran undetected and, alongside dozens of fighter jets, target Iran's key nuclear enrichment sites at Natanz and Fordo, where thousands of advanced centrifuges spin hundreds of feet underground. For the first time in combat, the U.S. dropped 14 30,000-pound massive ordnance penetrators designed to dig deep before exploding. This satellite image shows at least half a dozen precise impact sites at Fordo, where bombs landed before exploding deep underground. A third target, Esfahan, believed to hold Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, targeted by submarine-launched Tomahawk missiles.
This operation was designed to severely degrade Iran's nuclear weapons infrastructure. Initial battle damage assessments indicate that all three sites sustained extremely severe damage and destruction.
At the Pentagon today, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth called the mission limited and designed to convince Iran to negotiate.
This mission was not and has not been about regime change. As the president has directed and made clear, this is most certainly not open-ended. There are both public and private messages being directly delivered to the Iranians in multiple channels, giving them every opportunity to come to the table.
But Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi today said Iran had no intention to sit down.
Of course, the door for diplomacy should be always keep open, but this is not the case right now. My country has been under attack, under aggression, and we have to respond.
This morning, Tel Aviv absorbed the brunt of Iran's response. Iranian ballistic missiles tore through these apartments. Nobody died, but dozens were wounded. Iran could escalate further against Israel or target U.S. bases across the region where some 40,000 troops are on high alert. In the past, Iran has tried to choke off global oil supplies, actions that would bring further U.S. military strikes. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned today.
There are no planned military operations right now against Iran unless they mess around and they attack American or American interests. Then they're going to have a problem.
And Iran remains extremely vulnerable. If the U.S. were to decide to launch more attacks, the U.S. military today said that despite sending dozens of B-2 bombers and fighter jets into Iran, there was no evidence Iran fired a single shot at any of those planes, John.
Nick, is there any assessment yet about how far this has set the Iran nuclear program back?
Last night, we heard from President Trump that the sites were, quote, totally obliterated. You heard a more calibrated description today in our piece from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, saying that there was, quote, severe damage. Military officials tell me simply it's too early to have a proper battle damage assessment. But we do know one thing. Vice President Vance said today something interesting. He acknowledged the U.S. did not target Iran's highly enriched uranium stockpile. That is held at least partially in Isfahan. You see some file video from Isfahan right there. That's essentially the fuel that Iran could use to build a bomb if it decided to do so. Experts told me the Tomahawks that struck that facility were not capable of actually getting underground enough to destroy that stockpile underneath. So we know for sure at least part of the stockpile survives. Some experts believe, John, that this will convince Iran that once and for all, it does need to go after weaponization of a nuclear bomb. But today, Rubio said if Iran made that decision, regime change would be back on the table.
Nick Schifrin, thank you very much.
Thank you.